Hello, everyone. Daniel here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Helen of Wyndhorn. This is a new book from Dark Horse Comics. I had the pleasure to read an advanced copy of this book, and let me tell you, I am very excited for a lot of reasons, including the creative team. So let's take a look at the creative team, and then we'll get into this book. This book is written by Tom King with art by Bilquis Evely, colors by Mateos Lopes, and letters by Clayton Cowles. Now, if that team sounds familiar, it's because they also worked together on Supergirl, Women of Tomorrow, which is one of DC's, I would say, best regarded Supergirl stories of recent as well. So much so that, of course, it is being turned into a movie, or at least being used as an adaptation. But let's talk about Helen of Wyndhorn. Let me give you a quick synopsis here before we get into the actual review. From Eisner Award winning and best selling creative team of Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, comes this Gothic sword and sorcery epic that's Conan the Barbarian meets the Wizard of Oz. Following the tragic death of her late father, C.K. Cole, the esteemed pulp writer and creator of the popular warrior character Othan, Helen Cole is called back to her grandfather's enormous and illustrious estate, Wyndhorn House. Scarred by Cole's untimely passing and lost in a new strange world, Helen wreaks drunken havoc upon her arrival. However, her chaotic ways begin to soften as she discovers a lifetime of secrets hiding within the myriad of rooms and hallways of the expansive manor. For outside its walls, within the woods, dwell the legendary adventures that were once locked away within her father's stories. Uh, yeah, this is such a cool premise. And we'll get into a lot of that stuff. But overall, just like from the premise, like the fact that Helen's father was an author that was telling all these really cool fantasy, sorcery, like sword and sorcery stories. Um, but all that kind of comes from inspiration, maybe from the plays that he grew up in. All that mixed in with we have a pretty good, a cool framing device of like somebody retelling this story of Helen of Wyndhorn through somebody that knew her. We'll get into that in a little bit, and then also just all that wrapped up in this gigantic mansion that feels like a never-ending labyrinth of rooms. And there's not a lot of characters in the book, but the characters that we have are so well defined. They're very interesting, and of course our protagonist Helen is just uh, it's a very much of an unlikely hero, a reluctant hero, at least as far as we have on this first issue. um yeah, so it's very interesting. Now, all that is already very cool, but then you add the layer of Bilquis Evely's beautiful, beautiful art. It is so fantastic. Let's go take a look at some of that preview art so you know exactly what I'm talking about. So, just starting off from the first page, like, what an amazing way to kick off your book. Like, just this first page is really making a statement about what the story that we are about to embark on is. And then it's beautifully followed up with like, oh yeah, this is just like, it's a book or a graphic novel of like these characters. And then we see here, um, as we follow through this character, and I don't want to give away too much of who they are, but just know that they are somebody that was somebody that was in charge of Helen during all these events. I'll say. So yeah, just the changing colors, beautiful. Like Mateos Lopez's colors are amazing. I love how they just really build out the world. They make things pop, and of course, Bilquis Evely's art. So many lines, so detailed. I think specifically like in the hair, as you see here, the wrinkle lines in her face, the detail in the background. Like this kitchen looks like it's a lived-in place. Um, Even the little cat on the chair. There's so much. I spent a lot of time looking at just the art here. And then we flash back, right? We flash back to the time of Helen, and when we're picking up in that story. Um, I think starting off in like in Texas really sets this apart from anything that you would expect in a fantasy book. But of course, the setting will change throughout the first issue. So there was really like just touching a lot of different genres. Like, was this going to be a western? Is this a fantasy? Is this a horror book? Is this a gothic novel? Like, it just, everything in here just really really cool. And then what a best what a better way to introduce our protagonist than to find her passed out in jail. So yeah, it's just very exciting to get into something like this. So I think if you enjoyed Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, with all its different trappings and explorations of the fantasy genre, and Supergirl also kind of internally dealing with a lot, this takes a lot of those concepts and just escalates them to the next level. It really, we follow up with a lot of those same themes, and I think maybe this book was. I haven't really seen a lot of interviews from the team, but I can definitely see the influence of like, this is a cool story. It's a really interesting way to tell this approach this world. So let's kind of do something where we have full control and just explore just further every corner, like almost as if Tom King and Everly want to go through every room in that gigantic house that they have built. Um, and also, I went into this book not having read anything about it. I haven't read the synopsis. I hadn't read anything. Like I said, I've been pretty much staying away from anything because I wanted to really experience this like completely new. And when we get to the last few pages, the book just blew my mind. Like, I didn't know what to expect, but I was met with a wonderful surprise and a great big hug that I'm just really excited to get into the next issue. Um, Dark Horse has put out a lot of really cool covers. I think that I'm gonna have a hard time deciding on what to pick up on Wednesday. But I highly recommend you check this out. As I mentioned, if you're a fan of the Supergirl book, you want to check this out. If you're a fan of either of these creators, this is probably some of their best work to date. And this is just from one issue. And then also, if you're a fan of Gothic stories, or horror stories, or fantasy stories, like, I think this has a little bit of all that stuff mixed in. So it's really really cool. So yeah, I was very excited. I'm glad I'm finally able to talk about this book. So if you have read this, let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. As always, thank you for watching, everyone. Remember to share, like, subscribe, hit the bell so you know when we go live. That is most Saturdays, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. Stay tuned. We have more comic reviews, trailer reactions, TV recaps, all that fun stuff here in the channel. And as always, thanks for watching, everyone. Bye bye.